The 90s were a golden era for action films. In those years, dozens of excellent thrillers were made, many of which can still be comfortably rewatched today. One such film is Con Air, directed by Simon West. Thanks to the success of The Rock, Face Off, and Con Air, Nicolas Cage became one of the highest-paid actors in Hollywood. All three films were released between June 7, 1996 and June 19, 1997.
А это кто?
Кэмерон Поу. Он никто. Освобожден досрочно. Едет домой.
And who is this? Cameron Poe. He's nobody, paroled, going home. So Nicolas managed in just 1 year to star in 3 cult and box office action films. The achievement is truly unique. And although Nicolas Cage is not usually placed alongside canonical action heroes, he alone managed in such a short period of time to explode the box office 3 times with action films, and they all also received great audience ratings. Today, I would like to recall one of these films, the film whose script was rewritten on the fly, and it was the closest to an epic box office fiasco. The actor had a strict diet regimen before filming to help him stoicize and build muscle while simultaneously slimming down his already lean physique to leave only 3% body fat. The story was based on a Los Angeles Times newspaper article about a plane for transporting convicts. The script was rewritten by Jonathan Hensley, but his name was not listed in the credits because he simply rewrote it. Back then, largely thanks to Hensley, the film was hated by many of the actors who were involved in the shooting process. Sometimes it happened that in the evening, actors were handed script revisions, and the actors rehearsed their new lines until late at night. And the next morning, the script changed again, and the lines had to be learned again. Con Air could have happened back in 1995. However, Don Simpson, the business partner of producer Jerry Bruckheimer, was against working on this film. Together, they had assembled many hits, from Beverly Hills Cop and Top Gun to The Rock with Bad Guys. Simpson believed that the Con Air script was dumb as a cork and that it wouldn't make a good film. Bruckheimer disagreed, and after their producing duo broke up at the end of 1995, he alone launched Con Air into production. During the course of shooting the film, the characters' personalities were also rewritten. This already negatively affected the working process. Bruckheimer never feared betting on newcomers. For director Simon West, Con Air became his debut in feature films. West's career as a director began with commercials. By the way, one of his works became world famous. In 1987, West directed the video for the legendary singer Rick Astley, "Never Gonna Give You Up." It is now very hard to say whether Don Simpson was right. Too much changed in the final film. First, the lead role would not have been played by Nicolas Cage, whom Bruckheimer brought to the project after The Rock. And secondly, the script changed a lot. The plane with the prisoners, for example, crashed right into the White House, not landed in the middle of Las Vegas. Bruckheimer changed that point right before filming started. Independence Day saved the White House in 1996. No one dared blow up the White House 2 years in a row. Simon West was quickly appointed director of Con Air, for whom the film with Cage became his first full-length work.
Что случилось?
Вас поняли, Карсон-Сити. Успокойся, Винс. Там какая-то маленькая заварушка.
Маленькая заварушка?
In those years, it was very fashionable to bring in music video directors to film productions, and Bruckheimer already had positive experience with Michael Bay. West's most famous work is the Rick Astley clip that has long become an internet meme. Initially, Bruckheimer wanted to bring Tom Cruise to the lead role, with whom he had previously worked on Top Gun and Days of Thunder, but Cruise was not interested in such a film and politely declined the producer. Bruckheimer believed that the film would only work with some big star in the lead. So after Cruise's refusal, he went around half of Hollywood with offers, but he couldn't find an available star. Perhaps the lead role would have gone to William Baldwin, who was willing to work for food after the failure of Fair Game. But at that moment, The Rock arrived in theaters, and it turned out that the producer had just spawned a superstar who was not yet booked and was fairly inexpensive. John Cusack, who played Vince Larkin, disliked this film so much that Cusack had to do it only for the money and also to use his role as a springboard to create his own indie projects.
Я не собираюсь выслушивать эту чушь! Моя кликуха — бильярд, бандит, наркоман.
The actor Dave Chappelle, who played the criminal nicknamed Billiard, practically improvised all his lines.
Вот закусь взял.
Посторонним сюда нельзя.
Не волнуйся, детка, все в порядке. Я коп.
Ты что, работаешь в тюрьме?
Да, в исправительной колонии. Отошел на минутку.
In the scenes at the end of the film, the famous Sands Hotel in Las Vegas was filmed immediately before its demolition at the end of '96. When the filmmakers learned that the city administration intended to demolish the hotel, many cameras were urgently installed around the doomed building, which recorded this momentous event. And all of that footage made it into the film. Nicolas Coppola was also not thrilled with the script and agreed to star only after Bruckheimer completely untied his hands in working on the character. Cameron Poe was changed beyond recognition. In the script, he was an ordinary country boy from Alabama who, standing up for his girlfriend, took out a couple of thugs. Cage insisted that his character be a serviceman and that the killing only happened because the thugs had a knife. Then, at the actor's request, a broken friend was added to the plane whom the American hero could not leave behind. Since that seemed insufficient to Nicholas, he insisted on the presence on the plane of a female guard whom he could also protect in every possible way. In the actor's opinion, the script moment in which his character remained on the plane, although he could have left it, looked too naive, and with such a burden on his shoulders, his unwillingness to leave the plane when the opportunity arose would be quite adequate. Problems also arose with the main antagonist. Bruckheimer's first choice was Gary Oldman, but the actor immediately refused, finding nothing interesting for himself in the script. The main character is convicted of involuntary manslaughter, which would be a state crime. The court edition is apparently from the state, not federal. Thus, the judge does not have the right to sentence him to a federal prison, and there is no reason for someone conditionally paroled like Poe to be transported by plane, let alone be put in shackles. When in one episode, Nicolas Cage's character throws a dead guard out of the plane, his body falls on the beige wheel. Curiously, in The Rock, Cage's character mentions in conversation that he introduces the beige will. And in Face Off, his character escaping from prison also hijacks the beige will. The production designers and special effects team had to sweat to recreate this crash scene in Las Vegas. To do this, they built about 80 meters of miniature highway and accelerated a duplicate plane to 70 kilometers per hour. If anything, it was cold in Las Vegas at night then, and I was in that white tank top. On top of that, they also poured water on me. An interesting fact, after filming this movie, Nicolas Cage was wanted as the new Superman. Nicolas Cage and John Cusack would later work together again in the film The Frozen Ground. However, their roles had changed. Cage now plays a policeman, and Cusack plays a criminal. With a budget of $75 million, the worldwide gross was $224 million. I must say, whether I wanted it or not, I did most of the stunts in this film myself. Explosions went off a couple of meters from me. Debris was flying. You could even say I was a little scared. All actors have some requirements for interviews. John Cusack also has a few, and one of them is, do not ask questions about his work on Con Air. There was one funny moment. Although Cusack repeatedly emphasized that he cannot stand Con Air or his character in the film, in the late '90s, when Hollywood tried to launch a Con Air sequel, in one of his interviews, the actor said that if he were invited to the sequel, he would get over himself and certainly appear in it. But in those years, Nicolas Cage's career was rapidly declining, and launching an expensive action film with him was already dangerous, so all the discussions gradually died down, and Cage producer Jerry Bruckheimer switched to other projects.
В другой день это показалось бы странным.
А у меня как-то нет такого ощущения.
Похоже, тут одним словом и не скажешь.
When I agreed to shoot, I wanted this film to be just entertainment for the ordinary viewer. The pilot asks, "What's next?" During preparations for filming, Nikolai Spevich visited a real prison and talked to inmates, asking the usual question, how did they get into all this? To which the actor sometimes received a counter question, and how did you get to be an actor?
Это конец.
До свидания. Доброй ночи.
Я буду объяснять очень кратко и доходчиво. Вот тут свалка, тут ангар, вот тут наш самолет.
А это что?
Это камень.
Понял.